want to bring Brother Linn Washington up here. Give him a good round of applause, y'all. And please, try to keep the side conversations down because it is very distracting when you're trying to speak and there's a lot of talk going on. So let's try to keep it down. On the move.
Thank you, Ramona. Yesterday, I had the pleasure of visiting Mumia, and we were there for like 5 hours, and much of the time we talked about what was on that banner there: judicial misconduct and governmental terrorism. One of the first things that Mumia mentioned was a case that was decided by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court in 1978. And it was about a Philadelphia murder case, but in this particular ruling, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court absolutely blasted the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office for misconduct. What they did was went into court and lied to get someone convicted. Now that's not unusual. They do that all the time. And it's not just in Philadelphia. If you look at courts from New York to LA to Seattle to Miami, they do the same thing. But this particular ruling had specific criticism for one person. And what was unusual about this ruling is that they named the person in the ruling. And in court rulings, it's unusual for them to mention a prosecutor's name or a judge's name. They usually say the court. Like the judge, the idiot, is the court. And they'll say the Commonwealth when they're talking about the prosecutor. But in this one, where they said that the prosecutor engaged in misleading conduct, fraud, and deceit, they mentioned the name of Ed Rendell, the governor of the state of Pennsylvania. Since 1976, when the Pennsylvania reinstated the death penalty, 214 cases involving death sentences have been overturned. That was as of the beginning of this month. The judge who presided over Mumia's trial, or should I say the judge who railroaded Mumia, Sabo, he holds the record in the United States for trying the most number of death sentences. And I think it's about 32 or 34. Well, as of today, 75% of those cases have been overturned. Some because of misconduct by prosecutors, some by incompetence by trial attorneys, in a couple of those cases by bias and misconduct by Sabo himself. I just want to tell you a quick story, and I can't tell the types of stories like the other speakers that you have heard this evening. I can't tell you the type of stories that Fred Hampton Jr. can, because he's lived it, or Brother Amin, because he's lived it, or Ramona Africa, or the Puerto Rican brothers and sisters who were here earlier, or the brothers who they're trying to jam up in San Francisco. But I can tell you a story involving Mumia Abu-Jamal, and it started right here at this church. Or should I more specifically say, it passed through this church. Because on December 14th, 1969, there was a rally here at this church. 1,000 people were here. Well, let me put it this way. The media said 1,000 people were here. So if the media said 1,000 people were here, we can rest assured that there were more people here than that. Why were they here? Well, they were here for a rally about the murder of Fred Hampton. And one of the speakers on that program was a man identified in the media accounts as Wes Cook, someone who we know as Mumia Abu-Jamal. In a few days before Wes Cook, Mumia Abu-Jamal, spoke here at the Church of the Advocate, he was in Chicago. He had gone out to Chicago with some members of the Black Panther Party to see the murder scene. And yesterday he told me that when he went to see the murder scene, it blew his mind. Because there were bullet holes all over the place. The blood was still on the mattress. And of interest, the crime scene was not even secure. He said there were a line of people. They were bringing people in the house to let them see what was going on. Now, at the time, the official sources were saying, well, it was a good raid. We didn't do anything wrong. Well, we now know today that they murdered him. And it was the Chicago police in concert with the FBI. And when we look at the whole litany of outrages and injustices against the Panthers, this was the one case that the federal government and state governments paid up. They kicked out over $4 million because they murdered this man. So on December 14th, Mumia talked about it, and he talked about the murders that were going on at the time. Now, let's understand that a lot of people realized that. The next day, when the article about Mumia being here and 1,000 people being here went in the news media here locally, there was another article that was run by a guy named Carl Rowan. Now, at the time, Carl Rowan was considered an Uncle Tom. I'm gonna have to tell it. He was considered an Uncle Tom. But he criticized the FBI's assault on the Panthers. And he said, isn't it strange that in the past 2 years, the police have killed more Black Panthers than they had killed Ku Klux Klan members in 100 years? Now, a few weeks after Mumia spoke here, he was interviewed by the Philadelphia Inquirer. And they were talking about the Black Panther Party here in Philadelphia. And the reporter asked him, well, what do you think about this oppression, this campaign to kill Panthers? And he said, well, based on what I see, it looks like political power comes from the barrel of a gun. Police are killing Panthers. Police have killed Native Americans. Police are killing Puerto Ricans. That's where their power comes from guns. Now, months after that interview, Mumia resigned from the Black Panther Party and went on to become a journalist. Before he was in the Black Panther Party, while he was in the Black Panther Party, and after he was out of the Black Panther Party, not a single arrest, not a single crime, no violence. When Mumia was put on trial in 1982, and there was the judicial misconduct, he was tried by a judge who said on the day that the trial started that he was going to help the prosecutors fry the nigger. Now, there's no way in the world that that kind of trial could be fair, but that's what has happened because of judicial misconduct. After he was convicted, he was permitted legally to give a statement to the court. And he said that he was innocent of this crime. He said it not once, he said it 3 times. So this foolishness that Mumia never said nothing is just that, foolishness. So Mumia spoke in the law that's called elocution. You have a right to make a plea for mercy. But the judicial misconduct here, the judge said, no, that ain't allocution, that's a statement. And he allowed the prosecutor to cross-examine him. So the prosecutor pulls out the article and says, Abu-Jamal, did you say political power comes from the barrel of a gun? And Mumia said, wait a minute, let me see the article. Let me read the whole article. Let's put it in context. The prosecutor didn't want context because his line, his rap, was that Mumia, because he was a Black Panther, and we all know that those Black Panthers are violent and crazy Negroes, because he was a Black Panther 12 years ago, he had harbored a desire to kill a cop.